The first strap technique we are going to be doing is the Color Pop strap, and here I have our three components. We've got the exterior strip here, the contrast strip here, and the contrast strip stabilizer, which is cut from Decoville Light. Now, if you're doing a full crossbody strap of 54 inches, a lot of the times our Decoville Light is not going to be able to be cut in one continuous long 54-inch strip because your bolt might be only 35 inches wide, or maybe it's 17 inches wide. So what I have here is a couple different strips, each cut at whatever length I had in my scraps. So this is a good scrap buster for Decoville Light, actually. So these will just be fused in a way that will make them one continuous strip. So our first step is going to be on the wrong side of the exterior strip. We're going to mark lines that are 3/4 of an inch away from the long edges. And I just do this with a regular ballpoint pen right on the back side of the exterior strip. Okay, there's one line. And we're going to flip the vinyl over and mark another line 3/4 of an inch away from the other edge. Now my vinyl looks pretty wavy right now because I haven't pressed it or anything. It's been rolled up for a while. And there's a couple tricks to get waviness and folds and creases out of vinyl. One trick is to shoot the vinyl with a hairdryer. I like to just press the backside of my vinyl, and a lot of the times that really helps. Okay, I have made two lines that are each 3/4 of an inch away from the long edge on both sides, and we're going to set that aside for now. Next, we're going to be fusing our Decoville Light to the wrong side of our contrast strip. So here I have my contrast strip wrong side facing up against my ironing mat, and then my Decoville Light is just placed right along the back of the contrast strip, lining up the long straight edges. And what you want to make sure of is that the end of the Decoville Light is about 1/2 inch away from the end of the contrast strip. So I'm going to be fusing it so that there's about 1/2 inch of the contrast strip extending past the end of the Decoville Light. I also recommend spritzing with a little bit of water as you fuse these together. For me, spritzing with water has always helped the Decoville Light fuse better. And then I just move it along and line up all the edges as I go. And you can see here my first strip of Decoville Light has ended, and so I'm going to grab one of the shorter strips that I have, and I just cut these from scraps that I already had in my stash. And what we're going to do is just continue to fuse this down, but you want to overlap the two ends of the Decoville Light by about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch. Doesn't have to be perfect. And that overlap of the Decoville Light is actually going to keep your strap from folding, and it'll help your strap stay really smooth. And we're just going to press this and continue going until the end of the strap. Here's another strip I'm going to overlap right here. And fuse that down. And you can see now I'm at the end of my contrast strip on this side. So before I fuse this edge down, I'm going to make sure that I trim off the Decoville so that it is about 1/2 inch away from the end of my contrast strip. So right about there, I'm going to trim it right off, just like that. So now the Decoville light is basically shorter than the contrast strip. And then finish fusing. Okay, your contrast strip is now all fused with its stabilizer. You're going to want to let that sit for about 1/2 hour before working with it so that the glue from the stabilizer can set, and that will help it to not lift while you're working with it. My strip has now sat for about 1/2 hour and cooled, and what we're going to do now is take the end of the contrast strip and fold it back so that the end of the Decoville light is right inside that fold, and we're going to press that so that there are no longer any raw edges right at the end of your strip. And we're going to do the same thing to the other side, just fold it back. You're not folding any of the Decoville light, you're just folding the cotton around the Decoville light. And we're just going to press those really, really well so that they stay folded. And you can see here, the end of my cotton is just folded over the Decoville light and pressed. Next, we are going to run a line of double-sided tape down the center of the strap in between the two lines that we made here, all the way down until the end. And it doesn't have to be exactly perfectly in the center, just in between the two lines is fine. Okay, now remove the paper from the tape, and I like to just do a smaller section first, so I'm not removing the paper from the entire length of tape. And I'm going to retrieve my contrast strip, and the folded edge of one of the ends is going to align with this short edge of the strap, and I'm going to center that strip in between the two lines that I drew and stick it down. Now your strip is 7/8 of an inch wide, so it's going to fit in between your lines really well because your lines should be about 1 inch apart. So just center that all the way down and keep removing the paper from the tape as you go. Now don't pull on any of the exterior strip or the contrast strip. Don't pull as you're sticking it down. Just push it into the tape as you go. And continue all the way until the end. Now you're going to notice that your contrast strip is about 1 inch shorter than your exterior strip, and that's because we folded each of the ends in by 1/2 inch. So we've got this extra space at the end of the strap, and that's good. Do not trim that off quite yet. We'll trim that off at a later step. So you'll see that one of the ends of the contrast strip goes right up against the end of the exterior strip, and then on the other side it comes up about 1 inch shorter than the exterior strip. And next we are going to run another line of double-sided tape along the long edges of the exterior strip. So both edges. And I'm just going to start at one end and quickly tape the edges. All right, both of the long edges of our exterior strip are now taped, and I'm going to start on one end, removing the paper from the tape, just like that. And I'm going to start here. I like to start in the middle of the strap somewhere rather than the edge, when I'm folding because it helps me to keep everything straight. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to fold the edge of the exterior strip up until I meet that line I drew. Now, I'm not going to try and meet the contrast strip. So you might be able to see here, there's a little bit of a gap in between the edge of the exterior strip and the edge of the contrast strip. And that's because I'm only going up to the line that I drew. I'm not going up to the edge of the contrast strip. That little gap of space is really going to help. When we fold this over a second time, it's going to give some space that you'll need. And what helps me to keep everything straight and aligned so that your strap won't be twisted later is to continually skip ahead a little bit, fold over that edge, and then work backwards to the portion that you already have folded. And you'll find that that helps because if you just keep going with the same in the same direction the whole time, you might find that by the end of your strap, you've been misaligned the whole time. So I like to skip ahead, tape it down, and then move backwards. And that helps me keep everything straight. Okay, so one edge is completely folded over now, and I have very sticky tape. I really enjoy using this tape. It's the Tanner's Bond double-sided tape from Tandy in the permanent. There's one that's repositionable, and that's a tan colored tape. This one is the permanent tape, and it's white. I really enjoy using that. I found that the Waywack double-sided tape is very similar to this, but I prefer this one because I can tear it with my fingers rather than having to cut it with scissors. The Waywack one I can't tear with my fingers, so I have to always be reaching for my scissors to chop it off. So I really enjoy this tape because it's sticky enough that I can stick down the edge of my strap and then move on to the next one without clipping it down or making sure that it doesn't lift. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the other side. But if you're seeing that this side is lifting while you're working with the other side, go ahead and just add some clips there. Now I'm using a cotton canvas. It's not a super heavy canvas, but I did not interface it with a woven interfacing like SF101. I just fused the Decoville light directly to the wrong side of the canvas. If you're using something that's super light, you might want to interface that, but that's completely your call. All right, both edges are now completely stuck down. Next, we're going to do some clipping, and what we're going to do is, again, starting somewhere in the middle of the strap, not necessarily the halfway point, but somewhere in the middle of the strap away from one of the ends, I'm going to take the edge of the exterior and I'm going to fold it over using the edge of the Decoville light kind of as a guide. And I'm going to fold it over and clip that in place. And I'll show you here. So that edge is now folded over so that part of the contrast strip is being covered now. And we're going to continue to fold that over along the entire length of the strap, just clipping in place as we go. So the Decoville now extends to the very edge of the strap. It's relatively easy to fold over this vinyl because of the stability of the Decoville light. I'm just able to use that edge of the Decoville to kind of form that fold for me. It's also this point of the process where it's important that your vinyl is somewhat thin and pliable. So you'll be stitching through 3 layers of vinyl, 1 layer of cotton, and 1 layer of Decoville light. So in the end, it's about equivalent to sewing through 4 layers of vinyl, which is how thick a standard strap is. So there shouldn't be too much more of an issue with bulk sewing through this strap as there would be if you were sewing through a double folded strap. Okay, one side of my strap is now completely clipped. You can actually fold the other side in and clip that at the same time, but I actually don't have enough clips for that. So I'm gonna sew this edge and then come back and clip the other side. I'm gonna do one at a time. And so I'm gonna head over to my sewing machine and show you that process. Here we are at my sewing machine, and I'm going to show you an up-close shot of what this strap looks like now. So from the end, you can see here that the vinyl is folded over twice right here, and on this side it's only folded over once. So it doesn't actually cover any of the contrast strip quite yet on this side, but it does on this side, and this is the side we're going to be stitching now. I like to sew using a stitch in the ditch foot, which looks like this, and it has this little ridge that runs down the center of the foot. So I can run the edge of the vinyl along that ridge and stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from that edge. But I do know that not everybody uses this foot. So for example, if you were to use a walking foot or a regular foot and you were lining up the edge of the strap rather than the inside edge of the fold here, if you were lining up the edge of the strap like this, you would be stitching at 1/4 of an inch away from the edge of the strap. But I'm going to be using this stitch in the ditch foot, so I'm going to be lining up and sewing it 1/8 of an inch away from this inside edge. And it all depends on which foot you're using, which direction you want to start in first. I do note in the pattern to top stitch 1/4 of an inch away from the outside edge of the strap. So I just wanted to make sure to cover the fact that I'm actually going to be stitching 1/8 of an inch away from this inside fold. And you can do either way. I'm going to be starting at the end of the strap that has the extra exterior strip at the end. The contrast strip ends right here. So I'm actually going to start right where the contrast strip ends and don't go past it, but make sure that you're back stitching. All right, I'm approaching the end of this strap, so I'm just gonna sew right up until the end and then back stitch a couple times. Okay, you can see here that we stitched 1/8 of an inch away from this inner fold of the exterior strip and about 1/4 of an inch away from the outside of the strap. And when we started stitching, we were right where the contrast strip begins. We did not sew past it towards the end. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side, just fold and clip. And when you fold it, you'll begin to see that pop of color in between the two edges. All right, here is my strap all clipped on the other side as well, and you can tell now that there's a nice pop of color running down the center of the strap. And I'm going to start now on the opposite end from where I started last time. This time the contrast strip is flush up against the end of the strap, so I'm going to start sewing right there at the end, and I'm going to backstitch at the beginning and sew all the way to the other end of the strap right until my contrast strip ends. All right, as we approach the end, we are going to stop stitching right where our contrast strip ends. So don't go all the way to the end where there's only exterior and the contrast strip is ended. I am back stitching a couple times, and then I'm going to trim off those stitches. So you can see here that I did not go past the edge of the contrast strip with my stitches all the way to the end of the exterior. I just ended right here and back stitched. So now we can see that this strap is fully top stitched. And the front and the back, you can see that there's a line of stitches running all the way down. And the very last thing that we're going to do with our ColourPop strap is just trim off the end here. Right where the contrast strip ends, we're just going to trim off the excess exterior strip so that it is now flush with the end of the strip. And now if you choose, you can add some metal strap ends here so that your strap is now complete.